Hey guys, I posted on Facebook today some of the questions that some of our young people have been asking, and I was amazed by the response. That people really seem to engage with these questions and want to know the answers either for themselves or to help explain to their kids some of the answers to these questions that they're asking, because it seems like these are questions kids are always asking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a load of videos. I'm going to make a few of these videos focusing on some of the questions that have been asked by some of our young people, and I've grouped them together. And so today I want to look at some of the questions about creation that our children and young people have been asking. And so there are four questions really that they were asking. Firstly, how long did God take to create the world? What happened to the Garden of Eden? Were Adam and Eve born? Why were Adam and Eve born as adults, not children? And then why did God send the flood? I'll take the last one first because I think the Bible is much clearer about that. God, you can read about this in Genesis 6, but God sent the flood because the human race had become so despicable that he wanted to start again. And that's really hard, isn't it? Because it talks about God's judgment. But I think it also speaks to the depravity of the world at that time. That God had no option other than to start again. But also we see his grace in a man called Noah. And there's this phrase, Noah found favour in the eyes of the Lord. And literally it means grace found Noah. That God looked on Noah. He knew he had to judge the world, but also wanted to provide salvation. Did that through Noah, and through the ark we get a great picture of Jesus. I'd want to, if I was talking about this to my son, I'd want to talk about how God's justice, that just like parents give consequences for actions, God is like that as well, but actually then focus on the grace that God always has a rescue plan, a way for us to be forgiven. So that's the Noah one. The other ones really depend on your view of creation and whether the first chapter of Genesis, are literal or not. Personally, I don't think they're literal. I think they're poetic. So how long did God take to create the world? I honestly don't know. There are so many different views on this, and I know folk will disagree, and you can make a case either way from the Bible, and that's absolutely fine. But it seems to me that this world is very old. I wouldn't be surprised if God did some creative stuff in a 24-hour literal period. I don't really surprised, but it does seem that actually stuff was spaced out a lot more than that. And so, in answer to that question, if I was trying to explain that to our young people, I'd want to say that, look, the Bible, some of the Bible is poetry, and with poetry, it doesn't happen literally how stuff is said. And so I'd want to talk a little bit about that and about the fact that actually what it looks like for science of the world is very, very old, and what the passage in Genesis is trying to get across is not so much how God made it, as the fact that God made it, and he made it good, and he made it beautiful. And that's really important, because when we looked at how actually sometimes the world is really messed up, we can see that's not how God intended it, and we get that from the early chapters of Genesis. So what happened to the Garden of Eden? You can go down a couple of lines. One is to say it was destroyed in the flood, which is very possible. The other to say is we just don't know. Those early chapters of Genesis, when we get Adam and Eve and all that kind of stuff, was so long ago. It's almost impossible to tell what happened to it. But the Bible says that God is going to recreate Eden. That's what the end of the Bible talks about, that God's making a new heaven and a new earth, and it's just going to be like Eden, but even better again. So almost where Eden is, it doesn't matter as much as the fact that God is going to remake Eden. He's going to make paradise again. And why were Adam and Eve born as adults, not children? Depending on your view of Genesis, again, the answer is I don't know that they were born as adults, not children. If you were to push me, I were to suggest that maybe there's a moment where God takes this being that looks like a human and breathes his spirit into it. and creates humanity and people as we know it, rather than just animals without a soul. So, starting with the hard one, creation. There are so many different views. I think in explaining it to your children and young people, I'd really want to focus on the fact that the Bible uses amazing pictures and imagery, just like songs do, just like poems do, in order to build up this picture of who God is. I think that's the point of Genesis 1 to 6. Who is this God who we see in the rest of the Bible? And he's a powerful God. He's a creator God. He's an artist. He loves nature. He loves beauty. He made his perfect world that's been messed up, and he's gonna remake it again. So I don't know if that helps, but them's my thoughts on creation. Bye.